Get me logged into Peardeck. So, yeah, sure. Yeah. All right, you guys. So I asked you to do a very basic thing. Just tell me why scientific naming is so important. See what you guys came up with. Wild animals. Can you read that? Debunkadunk, cassowary, whatever. Okay, to classify them. Because you need it. No. Leopard, lion, okay. You named some, that's good. To keep them apart, to tell species apart. There we go. I don't know if we really took an attempt at that one or not, but well, some people did. You named some, but why is it important? It's so we can tell the difference between different organisms and we don't get them mixed up. We need a way to classify things. So we're going to look at the taxonomic system, what makes up the scientific name of a species, how we name things. You guys will want your book out today. Open to page 245. We'll talk about the structure of the modern Linnean system named after Carl Linnaeus. Yeah. Page 425. Sorry. 425. 425. So currently, there's about 1.7 million species that have been named and described by scientists. Scientists think that millions more are undiscovered, and the practice of naming and classifying organisms is what's called taxonomy. What does the word taxonomy make you think of? Taxes? I was thinking like I was thinking taxidermy, yeah. But yeah, taxes too. But yes, taxidermy. So dermis means skin, and taxidermy is classifying or preserving something by its skin. Well, in taxonomy, we're just going to classify the organism, not skin it and preserve the skin. So it's similar in that we're identifying something and kind of naming it and preserving it and sort of giving it an identity, but not with its skin in taxonomy. So biologists use a taxonomic system to organize their knowledge of organisms, and these systems attempt to provide consistent ways to name and categorize organisms. And they do not use common names. And this may be confusing because they are in different places. So if I think about something like how about a mountain lion? In Michigan, what do we call mountain lions in Michigan? We don't have mountains. What do we call them? Cougars, right? Cougars, right? Okay. And in, Mexico, I don't know what they call them. Chupacabras. In China, they call them, General Taos. In Japan, they call them sushi roll. But I don't know Japanese or Chinese. I don't even know Mexican. I don't know Spanish. You don't say that, do you? No. So you guys, would it be fair to say that I need a way to name things no matter where I'm at? So I don't have like 10 different names for a mountain lion? And so that's what we have. So a mountain lion is actually called Felis concolor. Felis is the genus, concolor is the species name. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But now no matter where I go, if it's China or Japan or Mexico, we can just call it Felis concolor. Even Michigan to Colorado, we call them different things. And now common names don't matter. We just use one scientific name. So the taxonomic systems are used to categorize and to organize organisms. And biologists group organisms into large categories as well as smaller, more specific categories. And the general term for any one of those is called a taxon. All of them together, plural, taxa. So if I put an ami on the end, taxomy, it means the study of, the classification of the different groups of organisms. And that's what this chapter is all about. So various naming systems were invented in the early days of European biology. So Europe was kind of the beginning of most modern sciences. And because Europe was run by the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church spoke Latin, that's what all of this is written in. That's why it looks like a foreign language. It's actually a dead language. It's the mother of all language. It's Latin. A lot of it will have roots, or French will have roots in Latin. Spanish will have roots in Latin. Even English has roots in Latin. And some use these long descriptive Latin phrases called polynomial names. On page 425, I'm going to lean over and borrow yours with you. You take a look at that, in this case, a leopard or a panther. You guys know leopards and panthers are the same thing. Panthers, like a black panther is a leopard. It's just a black panther is black instead of white. That's the only difference. So if I were to give a polynomial name for this leopard, though, I would have to call it Eukarya, Animalia, Chordata, Mammalia, Carnivora, Felidae, Panthera, Pardus. That's a mouthful, right? And no one wants to write all that down. So we don't use that. Plus, there's a lot of room for error. You could accidentally put something in the wrong category, and then you'd be wrong, and no one would know that there was such thing as a leopard because they'd be following a different lineage all the way down to species. So names for these taxa were inconsistent between the systems, and the only taxa which was consistent was the genus, all the way down at the bottom, where you see a leopard and a lion. And this was the taxon used to group similar species. What are we doing with graph paper? Okay, let's focus on notes first. So a simpler, more consistent system was developed by a Swedish biologist called Carl Linnaeus. And this guy's the star of this chapter. We talk about genetics, it's Gregor Mendel. We talk about evolution, it's Charles Darwin. If we talk about taxonomy, it's Carl Linnaeus. And he introduced a two-word naming system called binomial nomenclature. We just talked about polynomial. Poly means what? Many. Binomial, bi means two. So, and the word nome means name. So this is a two-word naming system that Carl came up with. And this included two things, the genus and the species name. And it simplified things. So instead of going through that whole polynomial name, we would just say Panthera pardus, including the genus and the species only for that leopard example. So Linnaeus' basic approach has been universally adopted, and the unique two-part name for a species is now called the scientific name. And scientific names must conform to rules that are established by an international commission of scientists. And I'll give you kind of an example of the way that works. So there's this tree in Michigan. It's called a, well, try to get rid of some of that. It's called a Quercus alba. There's this other tree called a Quercus rubra. And this is obviously not in the English language, right? This would be the genus. And over here is the species name. Oops, species. Boy, this is really hard writing sideways over here. All right, so Quercus, you'll notice, is what? Is it capitalized? If I could learn how to write a Q on this thing. And the species is lowercase, right? This is white oak. This is a red oak. This is their scientific name. They are both oaks, right? So the genus for the oak family is Quercus. This is a white oak. Alba means white in Latin. Rubra means red in Latin. So I have a white oak and I have a red oak. This would also be written in italices. What if I found a brand new oak? Do I have to still put it in the genus Quercus? Yeah. So if I find a brand new species of oak, I still have to call it Quercus. That's what the rules dictate. But the species name I can make up. So since I found it, it'll be the mason oak. Okay? Mason will be lowercase because that's the species name. Quercus is capital because that's the genus name. And it would all be written in italices. So if you find a new species, you get to name it. But you cannot put it in a brand new genus unless it is a brand new genus. That's called binomial nomenclature developed by Carl Linnaeus. So no two species can have the same scientific name because the species will be different. The genus might be the same. And all scientific names are made up of that two Latin or Latin-like terms, and all the members of a genus share the genus name as the first term, like Quercus alba, Quercus rubra, Quercus mason. And the second term is called the species identifier and is often descriptive. In alba's case, alba means white, rubra means red. So if we look at this Apis mellifera, this belongs to the European honeybee. The term mellifera actually means honey, and it makes sense if you think about melons, like honey rocks, right? They're named after the sweet taste. And when you write the scientific name, the genus name should be capitalized, and the species identifier will be lowercase, and it all will be italicized. So why is this important? Well, when you guys are reading even an ACT or an SAT writing, and even a scientific journal later when you're in your graduate degree in college, you're going to come across a lot of these words that are written in Latin, and they can really make you confused if you don't understand what they are. Well, if I'm reading this big, complicated reading and I run across a Latin word, I might just give up. But if I know they're talking about an organism, because I can tell it has a genus and a species name and it's in italices, I know not to be like deterred from that. I can just say, okay, they're talking about one type of organism here and another type of organism over here. No problem, keep reading, right? And what I've found is students will actually stop reading things if they're written in confusing words they don't understand. Go figure, right? I do the same thing. Like if it gets too hard to read, I'm like, oh, screw this, I'm done, right? But if you can realize what that actually is talking about, all it is just a genus and species of an organism, hopefully, you'll keep reading. Bless you. The cat, you allergic to cats? Yeah. I took all the fur off them for you. It can't be that. So Linnaeus devised a system to classify all plants and animals that were known during his time. Now, there weren't 1.7 million at his time, but today there are. And in the Linnaean system of classification, organisms are grouped at successive levels of hierarchy based on similarities in their form and structure, how they're built. And those 8 levels are domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Do I have to know all of those, Mr. Mason? Yes. Do I have to know the order? Yes. Here is how I remember it. There's no way I can write this sideways. It's not going to work. I'm going to have to move up here. So I always remember it by decorative kites, possess, color, order, for good sight. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I'm glad you said that, because you guys right now are going to come up with your own way. Because my college professor did some dumb King Philip thing, and I don't even care about King Philip unless I'm watching like Sleeping Beauty. With the guy who killed the dragon. No? See, I got 2 daughters. That's all I watch that stuff. So why don't you guys come up with your own, and then write it in here, and we'll take a look at it in a minute. You must start. All right, let's see what you all came up with. Why? It'll be a long week. Dumb kids play cards on Frank's good skirt. Frank is wearing a skirt. That's all I took out of that. Drew King played chess obstacles for Grandma's slushies. Whose grandma has a slushie machine? Yeah. Dang kids put children's objects. Panther goes stupid. Okay. Donkey Kong plays off forest green sprinkler. Does Katie possess cats or females going scared? Dingy, kingy, flingy, clingy, or ringy, flingy, jingy, spingy. If you remember that, I don't know. That's tough. Does kissing cook out? Oh, does Chrissy cook outside for George Smith? Who's George? Oh, okay. Oh. Does King Philip cook onions for good Sarah? Darn keepers pump cholesterol out from good spices. Demon kings possess clowns over funny gun specs. Donkeys kick people causing odor for good smell. It's like something out of Shrek. Dogs kill people because other flamingos get stupid. Donuts kill people because obese food gets stolen. That's funny. You know, one donut is 4.5 miles. That's like, your average donut is a 4.5 mile jog. Yeah, don't eat donuts. Oh, no. Okay, dead kings pop orphans for good spirits. Wow. Dumb King Phil can't order fun good spies. Okay. Decorative kites possess color order 4 gets. That's the best one I've seen. Right there, look at it. Such a smart and clever way to remember it. Who came up with it? Desperate kings plead classmates on freaking good spaceships. Dogs, kangaroos, pandas, cats, owls, fish, goats, and snakes. I love animals. Hee hee. So I don't care how you remember it, but you have to remember domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Now each level has its own set of names for taxa at that particular level, and each taxon is identified based on shared traits, things they have in common and different from other groups. Similar species are grouped into a genus, similar genre are grouped into a family, and so on, all the way up to domain, which is the largest groups. In the following slide, we'll show the classification of the same European honeybee we were talking about. What types of cells are bees made out of? Eukaryotic or prokaryotic? I'm sorry, my little clicker got out of control. They're eukaryotes like us, so they would be in the same domain as us, eukarya. No, that's where we're good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Now, they aren't animals, so they're in the animal kingdom. And then the phylum is that they fall under, now it's going to get a little weird. It's called Arthropoda. That means a many-segmented, many-legged organism. Okay? They're in the class Insecta because that type of organism has 6 legs, a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. You guys probably remember that about insects, right? Okay. They're in Hymenoptera. Hymenoptera is the bee order, sorry. The family Epidae, which means they have a stinger. That's part of that. The genus is Apis, which now we're getting very specific into the type of bee they are. And then the species is Apis mellifera because they're a honeybee. Melon, the sweet honey melon. Okay? So there can only be one species down at the bottom. You have to eventually end up with just one. Yes? A spider is not an insect. A spider is an arachnidae, sorry. So they're in a different order. Okay. So yeah. They are an arthropod. Let me tell you some other things that are arthropods. Ticks, fleas, millipedes, centipedes, crayfish are arthropods. So those are all in the same Arthropoda order, or phylum, sorry. So the category domain, you guys, has been invented since Linnaeus' time. Domain looks at just the cell type. Very simple. And all living things are now grouped into one of the 3 basic domains. You're either eukaryo, you're either bacteria, or what's called eubacteria. We'll talk more about those a little bit later. Bacteria, right? That is the bacteria that gets you sick. Archaebacteria are our bacterial ancestors, the ones that our mitochondria are related to and chloroplasts are related to. So the category kingdom encompasses large groups like plants, animals, or fungi, and there are 6 kingdoms within those 3 domains we talked about. A phylum is a basic subgroup within a kingdom, a class, a group within a phylum, These look like good definitions for your vocab. Hint, 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 hint. Hashtag the answers. Hyenas laugh. They're in the animal kingdom. Mammalia. I don't know. They're in a canine somehow. I gotta look that up. An order is a subgroup within a class, a family within an order, a genus within a family, and of course species. There can be more than 2 or 3 or 4. It can be just one within the species of a genus. But once we get down to species, we can only have just one at the species level. We get many different genuses and many different species within the same genus, but once we get down to just one species, you can only have one there. So a species is usually defined as a unique group of organisms united by heredity or interbreeding. And in practice, scientists tend to define species based on unique features. Like us, we are Homo sapiens. We're recognized as the only living primate species that walks upright and uses language. Let's break Homo sapien down. Sapien is our species name. There can only be one sapien. What am I doing right now? I'm talking. Sapien means to speak in Latin. Homo means one or singular in this case. Okay? So there is only one species inside of the genus Homo, and that's why our genus is Homo, because there's only one species in there. They actually named the genus after the fact that there's only one of us left. All of our other species have become extinct in the genus Homo. Does that make sense? Okay. So our genus and species scientific name basically means the Homo that speaks. So we are Homo sapiens. So biologists use taxonomic systems to organize their knowledge of organisms, and they attempt to provide consistent ways to name and categorize organisms. And we know that all the scientific names for species are made up of 2 Latin or Latin-like terms, genus and species. And you must remember the order of taxonomic Linnean systems in classification as being decorative kites, possess color, order, four good sight, also known as domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. However you remember that, you must. Bless you. So that's